Hey, this is Tara. I recently started this year and went on a bit of an information fast. And I did that not because I didn't want to know what was going on in the world or hear other points of view or learn new things, because I am constantly craving new information and learning new things. But what I had started to notice was that I actually was becoming dependent on outside information. It was filling up space like background noise. And as much as I was getting information, I always had something plugged into my ears, whether it was an Audible or a podcast or a YouTube or a TED Talk. I had something, some kind of information from some expert, and sometimes not so expert, in my head, filling me with what I thought was new and good information. And much of it was. This is how we stay on top of new developments in our field. I learn about neuroscience. I learn about what's going on in my field of practice. And what I wasn't really doing was taking enough time to check in with that information to see how it consolidated or rejected what I already had in existence. I also noticed that I started quoting other people and other sources for information way more, and that I really hadn't decided how I felt about it, but I really hadn't brought in any of my own new thoughts. So I had become dependent on outside information to be the information that then I would pass through my mouth to other people. But the missing piece of that was no creativity on my own part, no sense of checking in. A sign of intelligence is to be able to receive new information and actually reject it non-defensively. Say, no, this doesn't work for me, or no, it could be researched, but I disagree, or no, but what if, the other line of questioning. And so some of the podcasts I was listening to were doing that. They were stimulating debate within me, and then I would kind of talk it out and reject some of the philosophies or incorporate them. But what was happening really was that I was using other people's thoughts and expertise and developments and research and conversations and dialogue as a way to fill up space, as a way to take the place of not having those conversations, dialogue, thoughts, and research of my own, and not really noticing what would be there in that space if I wasn't filling it. And what I found was a few things. One thing was that I never felt like I was alone with my own thoughts anymore, and so I wasn't lonely. As busy as my life is and as my day is, that just added in more things, and it was a distraction from other parts of my life that I want to work on that would be more fulfilling short term, and certainly more fulfilling long term, like conversations with real human beings where it's back and forth, not just a passive recipient, or going out and meeting somebody for coffee or dinner or drinks, or developing social relationships and having those conversations one-on-one with somebody that's in the room with me. So there was a distraction from that. There was also a distraction, not just in my social relationships, but in doing my own research, forming new thoughts. We think that there are no new thoughts to think, but we take everybody else's. I wasn't thinking of my own thoughts. I wasn't having a creative process of my own. I was borrowing everybody else's. And sure, we don't need to reinvent the wheel, but I don't want that part of my brain to go soft and to atrophy and to stop working, because I'm not spending enough time in my own quietness to come up with innovation of my own, from myself, from my own expertise. And that's the last thing, is that I wasn't relying on my own expertise. I was quoting other people for information to prove points or to give education. I have a lot of knowledge and information on my own, and I wasn't using it because I was relying on other people, as if I needed somebody else to quantify or make credible what I was saying. And the reality is that I don't, but I'd become dependent on this influx of information for all of my learning, all of my creativity, some kind of pseudo sense of connectedness or thought stimulation, and it was a distraction from other parts of my life that are really important, like creative thought, innovation, my own ideas, and sharing in dialogue with other people without needing to cite a reference source. So that's one of the reasons that I would encourage everybody to take a look at what you're allowing to come into your field. and start discerning whether it's actually serving what you need it to serve. So I've really cut back. I maybe will listen to one podcast a week instead of 1 or 2 a day. I'll listen to an Audible once or twice a week instead of every single day. I've really limited the amount of stuff coming in, especially into my ears and into what I'm watching. It saved me some of the vicarious trauma from negative news feeds that are out there, and that's really important for emotional and mental health and stability. You want to be aware, but you don't want to have vicarious trauma from everything that's going out there. Be aware of too much noise in your life, because when you sit in quiet without purpose, without even the purpose to meditate, without even the purpose to visualize, without even the purpose to goal set and plan your day, all good things, what happens when you just sit? No music, no Audible, no podcast, you just sit with your own thoughts. What comes up out of your own thoughts is so refreshing and such a reclaiming and reuniting of you to you. And I believe it's going to allow me to show up in a way more authentic, Tara way in my relationships than what I was being led into with the information overload I had from all these other sources, all these other positive, really wise, vetted sources of information. They're good, but it was too much. So I encourage you to try an information fast. It's just like how we should take fast from anything that becomes overindulgent in our lives. Take a step back, go on a fast. What happens in your mind without extra noise? Because it's going to tell you a lot about your own resilience, what you're being distracted from, and what you're not pouring your energy into in your life that you really should be addressing. These are the things that just in a few weeks I have learned from doing this myself. I encourage you to do the same, and then let me know what you found. What happens when you stop plugging in to other things and other people and other ideas? What happens from your own? I would love to hear stories of creativity and innovation and newness and deepening of connection. Share with me. And until the next time, I hope you're well.